Right, this is an overdue video, but this is going to be a checklist of how to set up force feedback. It's going to work for any wheelbase because it's just going to be talking about the core fundamentals of force feedback and how to get yourself in a position where you can get the wheelbase to meet you a bit closer to halfway, rather than you throwing on a preset on day one of owning a wheelbase and having to adapt to it and then living by some set and forget philosophy when ultimately you didn't set it. You just pulled a lucky pick and you kind of hung on to it and said that's that. And if that is the way you're driving and that's the way you want to do it, hey, that's for you. You might have misclicked the video. But if you are looking to kind of delve into the settings and kind of unpack them a little bit more and see, is there some low-hanging fruit that you missed? Have you been having to adapt your driving style just to poorly configured settings? Because to be honest, they are tricky to kind of figure out. There's so many different sliders and different sliders interact with different ones. And it's like a fucked up equation. It's like having solid food once for the first time in your life. You eat like an apple and you're like, oh, that worked. That fed me. I'm just going to eat apples from now on. No, we don't. We keep going. It's dynamic. You try different things. Even when you cook the same dinner, you keep doing it different ways. The recipe never stays the same, ultimately because your skills never stay the same. So eventually it comes to a point where, you know, the physics model in a simulator changes, the firmware in your base changes, tracks change, cars change, all these things change. You should be in a position where you can manipulate your force feedback settings. Granted, they're explained quite poorly in apps, and even when they are explained well, it's not broken down in a super simple way. It's just written in text. It's much easier to have someone show you. So we're going to go over a very basic checklist. This is the one I use. It is arguably, certifiably the best, no, I'm only joking, the most wrong settings for you. There's nothing correct about them because no one's settings are correct. It's very important you understand that, because if you go to find a pro's force feedback settings and you're like, okay, this is what the pro use, I need to adapt to this because if I can adapt to this, then I know I'm going to be fast. It's like, no, you know you're going to be fucked, like, honestly, because these pro drivers, they could drive with no force feedback. They have so much finesse that these settings are designed for someone who hits their marks all the time with very slight deviation. If you're that kind of driver, give it a go. But for me personally, down in mere mortal land, not particularly so. Again, talking to the point where it's kind of handy to know how to manipulate your force feedback settings, because there's certain issues that can arise whilst racing, while on the track, that if you know how to change it and fix it in here, you'll be having a much better time. So again, basic concept stuff. We have to remember, what is force feedback? We're listening to the wheel, our hands, our ears, that kind of thing. If it's moving too fast in your hands and things are catching you by surprise and you're fighting the wheel, you notice that you turn into a corner and it's like, whoa, I lost it for a second, but I got it back. It's too much. You need to have total control of your wheel in a corner, ultimately, you know. And that's not even to be the fastest in the world. It's just to have control at your level the entire way through the corner. If you find out that mid-corner you're not actually feeling enough, you might not have enough force feedback. And it doesn't matter whether you have 1 Newton meter or a million Newton meter. It's just about how you manage your grip strength and the torque coming from the wheelbase. So just managing how you're dealing with that. You're trying your best to listen to the wheel. So now that we know we're listening to the wheel's trying to tell us stuff. We need to go into the settings. Let's get into this little fun, very elaborate checklist thingy that I've put together for you off the cuff. But hopefully by now I've challenged you maybe to experiment a little bit with your settings. How do you know what settings do? First of all, without actually getting into the checklist first, it is unbelievably easy. Literally, you can go download Microsoft Power Toys, press Control Windows T, make it always on top, go out and test drive, and whilst driving, change the settings. Some of these settings you don't even need to be in the sim to do. We can actually turn up damper, and it's actually like we're pushing our hand through water. The faster your hand goes, the more it slows down. It's a damper. And you can actually feel this here. There's resistance, and if we turn this off, the wheel is free in the hands. This can be done for all settings, honestly. Some need to be done while driving, wheel rotation speed, FFB detail, any slew rate stuff. A lot of them you will feel while driving, but for stuff like damper, you'll get a great feel of while you're still. Filter when driving. So the first thing you need to do is find out how much force you want to do. Ultimately, you're going to be using maximum in your wheelbase settings. Some people do like to set it to a lower setting and then again have settings in the sim. Personally, I just leave it super high. Sometimes I lower it down a little bit if I just don't want all that extra detail and I just want to kind of finesse it. I leave it maxed out. So we've decided our max force. That's number one. Second thing we need to do is add a little bit of smoothing filter and the classic trio, damper, friction, and inertia. We need to just go over these guys. So what I'm going to do is set filter level 1. Personally for me, because if I leave this off, the force feedback comes in like a sawtooth and it feels too scratchy in the wheel. Great, it means the wheel can do it, but I don't need that. It's too much chatter while I'm trying to listen for force feedback. So I'm going to set filter level 1. Some people may like to go all the way up to level 10. It depends how smooth you like your wheel. People have different tastes when it comes to force feedback. Some people like a wheel that's very feisty in their hands and it's very difficult to handle, but that's where they get the most enjoyment out of it. It gives them a sense of risk and danger whilst they're racing. I was that person who liked that style force feedback, but I quickly found out I liked the idea of having it. Ultimately, it didn't make me faster. And if there was one thing I liked more than the idea of raw force feedback, it was actually trying to be faster than I previously was. So I had to find force feedback that the car needed and I needed, not that I wanted. That's a tricky one that you're going to have to overcome, because you might feel something and you're like, oh, that feels weird. It feels boring. Next thing you know, you're driving super, super quick and you're like, why am I driving so consistent and quick? It's like, oh yes, I have boring FFB settings, which mean no surprises, which means consistency. You know what I mean? So just a bit of food for thought. Filter level, ideally I'd like to have it on 0. I go between 1 and 2 just because I like to smoothen things out a bit and don't confuse my arms when it comes to memorizing, the muscle memory needed for some tracks and cars. We're not going to be using these two. And quick shout out in SimMagic, I turn all these off. Center damper to 10% if you'd like to fix a little bit of wobble in the middle of the wheel. Now we're going to have a look at mechanical damper. So mechanical damper is a very interesting one. When I first got my direct drive wheelbase, I was like, no damper, I don't want that. It needs to be raw, it needs to be super, because I'm a supercomputer. I don't need anything between me and the raw data. I was a dumbass and that's that. Put my hand up, I was wrong. But I learned, bit of damper is nice because damper adds weight to the wheel. You turn into a corner, it has a little bit of stay. And like I put on 20 damper, it's not that much, like at all. Arguably I could try a little bit more. Like 50 is quite stable too. I'm at 20. I'm completely, I'm just experimenting here. But if you can imagine, damper just keeps the wheel put. When you turn into a corner and turn out of a corner, it'll just let the wheel stay a bit more. It gives the wheel a bit more stay, if you want to call it that in very poor broken English. But again, damper, the best way you can think about it is it's like a rowing machine. It's like running your hand through water. The faster it goes, the more resistance there is. So you'll feel it with the wheel. The quicker you move it, the more resistance that comes onto it. Friction is another one that's interesting because this can add a nice bit of texture under the car that's easy to remember when turning the wheel. Friction is like, we'll turn it up. It's the feeling of the tires. So when you turn the wheel, then the tires follow. You can actually feel that twist of rubber on the ground. Ultimately, I don't like too much of this. I just use a very, very tiny amount as it gives me very nice feeling in the wheel. And this is more one for enjoyment personally, just to kind of add a nice bit of dilution into the force feedback detail. It's so subtle, you might not even realize it's there. You could higher it up a little bit if you want that feeling of the tires underneath the car. But again, super subtle stuff. So damper is resistance kind of with speed. Friction is the tires moving under the car. By the way, I could be completely wrong here. It's just how I understand it. Don't shoot me. Inertia. This is a weird one. I don't use it because it just complicates things. The car has enough moving parts. This tries to add more. Mechanical inertia is when you turn the wheel will kind of carry on for a moment. And, again, practice it. Turn it to 100. Turn left 90 degrees. You can even do this with me right now. Feel the way the car tries to keep going, or at least the wheelbase tries to keep going. This is to simulate kind of the mechanical inertia of bits and bobs in the car. When you turn into a corner, sometimes things might keep going. So let's say you turn 90 degrees, things might keep going a little bit and peak into 91. That kind of thing. Absolutely hate it. I've tried it a few times. It gets me a cheap extra bit of turn in if you're into it. But I'm not into that, to be honest. Slew rate control with this particular wheelbase makes it easier to accept curbs. it does not change the force feedback. None of these change the force feedback in the sense of the levels of grip. They change the speed, the velocities, all sorts of weird stuff. But your level of grip and how you're able to hang on to a corner, in theory, should be the exact same force. So I find with slew rate control, this is best judged when driving. If I turn this on 0, I go to Imola and I drive over curbs. When I go over curbs, you'll see my hands do this. Boom. I have to save the car. If I put this up to 30 or 40, I can drive over the curb and the curb strike comes so quickly that flick up in force feedback, it doesn't register. It just does not give the wheelbase any time to kind of register it. My hands get to stay put, and what was once a very terrifying corner that I was really struggling with to overcome, and to kind of, I was getting worried about it and wondering how are the pros just flying over these curbs. I just had this setting wrong. Ultimately, there's a lot of ways you can fix flying over curbs, but even once you've done all those things, if your force feedback isn't set right, you're still going to be wrestling the car for no reason with a huge spike in frequency, like in FFB, as you go over the curb. So slew rate control with SimMagic between 20% and 40% works a charm. If I go to Imola, I'll put that on 40% just to give me pure control flying over the curbs. In other words, I'd have it down at 20 or 30 normally. So how are we feeling with that? Again, a little bit long the video, I know, but I'm just trying to kind of get these across to you. Literally in less than a couple of minutes, you're going to have all this down. There's no cheat codes to it. There's no right or wrong way. It's very simple. That's what it is. If you notice the wheel's too floppy in your hands, put on a bit of damper. If you'd like to feel a little bit more texture under the tire while turning, a bit of friction. If it's all too scratchy and jittery and it feels like your base is about to clatter itself to death, add a little bit of smoothing. You know, what happens with force feedback very quickly, you realize, is that to set up force feedback, it's not so much you're trying to add things on, you're trying to fix problems. So if you find out the wheel is too floppy mid-corner, you want to add a bit of weight to it, add a bit of damper. That way when you get in and you're coming out, there is stability, there's a bit of stay in the corner. That's what damper's for. Friction as well can just add a bit of weight to the car. So when you are making changes, they're not so floppy and willy-nilly. You know, there is a bit of weight to it that it's very easy to remember to turn in and to turn out, and it's easier to build up a bit of a pattern with that. Wheel rotation speed now. We're going to get on. This is a belter. Just when you thought you had all that stuff sorted, wheel rotation speed really comes and F's up the entire party. Wheel rotation speed is how fast the wheel can move in your hands. So up at 100, you'll notice it feels incredibly light, but it moves quickly. So you'd actually have to move your force feedback up in the sim to manage that. The lower you move it, you'll notice that the wheel will get heavier, and you'll actually have to lower your force feedback in the sim to have the same feeling of force as you did before. Again, I recommend you go out and try this setting. It's critical you get this one right. And it's very, very contested online what's the best. Ultimately, they're all wrong and they're all right. There is no best settings. I've seen people online claim that wheel rotation speed at 0 is the best. I don't know how you can react to instantaneous understeer with that. At the same time, me myself, I've been very biased to say 100 was right. And if I could grab that Jacko by the throat and give him a smack, I would. So ultimately, you can't listen to anyone here. Your best bet is to put it in the middle of the road and work from the middle. That's what I say. We're very used to settings going to an extreme either end and maybe pulling ourselves back in. If you don't fully know where you sit with a setting like wheel rotation speed, a lot of wheelbases have different names for this, but ultimately it's the same thing. I'll hover over it here and you can find out what matches it in your wheelbase software. I'd say start in the middle of the road. Ultimately, what this does is it adds a bit of damper, it adds some of these effects from over here to slow down the wheel while it's moving. So when you put it to 0, it's just basically like having a lot of damper. So what I do personally is I leave it around 60, 55 or 50 in a GT3 car. At 45, it's nice because the wheel has a bit more heaviness to it. In a Formula car, the car feels like it's on rails. So when you're in high downforce corners, the wheel gets heavy enough. So I don't really need that extra stay, if you want to call it that. But yeah, 60, it's where I'm jamming recently. It gives me nice stability in the wheel. So if you're using SimMagic, Wheel rotation speed can be a game changer for consistency and stability in the wheel, but just remember, it's basically a melange of all these kind of settings here. FFB details. This comes in all shapes and sizes. You'll see in Simcube, it's called telemetry FFB effects. You'll see in other, it's all FFB detail. FFB details is interesting because with SimMagic, it actually provides a lot of detail, but not the kind you'd think. So it'll bring the wheelbase alive. You'll feel stuff on the road texture and all that. But as well, you'll feel the booty of the car, to be put very simply, moving. So when you turn into a corner, you'll feel, whoa, there's something on the, it's like the car's gotten longer and you can really feel what the back of the car is doing. This is good, but if you use too much of it, what happens is the back of the car comes out, the wheel loads up a little bit more, and if there's a bit of a twitch on the back, you'll get quite a ferocious change in the hands. That's something for me, it's not too desirable. So I've been playing with keeping this fairly low, but at the same time, putting this up to 20 is a phenomenal feeling when you're well practiced in a track, because you get a great feeling of what's going on in the back of the car. You know, there's the telemetry FFB from Simcube, where I've heard people talking about saying that mid-corner it gets super heavy. I've tried it out myself. And what happens is you get this huge load up mid-corner and then it kind of goes away. So personally, with that one, I'm not too into. SimMagic's FFB details, I'm not sure how it works or if it's telemetry based or whatnot, but it's very consistent and very easy to use. It's a simple slider, 0 to 20. Again, test it out. Put it always on top here. Go out and drive in the sim. While you're driving, put it to 20, put it to 10, put it to 2, whatever you want. Or you could turn it off. The only important thing, I guess, to say at this point, I feel like I've done a decent job in letting you know. We could sit here for quite a while and discuss this stuff. But really, what I've told you, if you're watching at this point, firstly, thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing. I love you a long time. We now know that they're simple. They're simple. There's no magic to it. You don't need to be an engineer. You don't need to be a motor control expert. That's it. That is it. And what's going to happen is you're going to go set some settings. Try them out for a while. In a month, you're going to try a new setting. You're going to fall in love with that. And then at the end of the month, you're going to go back to your old settings and realize, no, these were the ones. It's never going to stop, guys. I'm just going to let you know it's completely dynamic, like everything in life should be. Don't think of it as trying to uproot yourself. You're just getting more dynamic. You're understanding your wheelbase, and eventually a year, 2, 3, 5 will go by and you'll just know how to do it. So there's two types of people, you know, when they lose their settings, they go, oh no, I don't have a picture of my settings. I don't know what's what. And then there's other people that are like, well, I know exactly what my settings are. Like a little bit of damper, not too much speed, a little bit of detail, tiny bit of smoothing, you know, slew rate just to manage curbs. When you're able to say that to yourself, that's it. So hopefully give it a go. We're not jumping into like iRacing setups here. And the most important thing is be open-minded. Be open-minded. If you don't want to change your settings and you go change settings just to test them out, yeah, it's not going to work out for you because you're not interested in seeing what it has to offer. So like Anton, you know, try some settings, head out, do 4 or 5 laps and try and grow on them. Don't see the delta bar. Don't see anything. Just, you know, like you've hopped in someone else's simulator, give it a go. You might like it. You might hate it, but yeah, just a bit of food for thought. That's the flow I use to go through my force feedback settings. Very wish-washy, I know, but you know, that's it. Max force, smoothing, go through the trio, slew rate control if you have it, wheel rotation speed, the actual speed of the wheel in your hands, and then whatever fancy effects your software has. In this case, it's FFB details. It's the flow I use. That's the flow I quite enjoy. Gives me the best feeling, gives me the best enjoyment, really. And has allowed me to grow as a sim racer and in my performance sim racing. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.